talking to him the other day about what is he going to do. So he had given me some preview of what he's going to do. So I think he would start with the e-commerce and then B2B e-commerce, and thereafter he would conclude at inclusive e-commerce. Actually, he calls it as now I-commerce. So we have a lot of words going on. So Gigi, without much ado, I would please request you to go ahead with your presentation, and we will come into the moderating and the Q&A later. Thank you very much. Proceed, Gigi.
Thank you. I hope everybody can see my screen. Um, Thank you so much, TiE Kerala and Nirmal, to give me this opportunity to share my knowledge and a little bit of experience in e-commerce. And Nair sir, thank you for this. Thank you for making this happen. So Nirmal gave you a good overview of who I am, my little bit of background, and I have a couple confessions to make. I am a problem solver addict, and I'm a recovering multitasker, and I'm a past startup junkie, right? And I'm going to end up my confessions there, and the rest Nirmal has touched upon it. So this presentation, as Nair sir said, this presentation is mostly going to focus on B2B. To set the stage, let's do a comparison of B2B and B2C, and there are many obvious differences between B2B and B2B, B2B and B2C. I'm going to focus on a couple not so obvious one. I'm going to start with one of the easiest one first. If you think about a business, right, the sales funnel, sales and marketing funnel is very, very important. And when you think about B2C funnel, you're looking at the demographics of the customer, the attributes that you're going after, the age, gender, occupation. So you are at that personal level, right? Now, if you flip the coin and look at the B2B, you're looking at a firmographic, right? Industry, location, revenue, etc. Now, why this is important? Any business is a relationship. Business transaction is a product of the relationship, right? So in B2B, in B2C, how this relationship is established and when it is established and what the expectation out of this relationship differs in B2B and B2C. So in B2B, in B2C, if you think about buying a pair of shoes, right? The whole user experience of bringing you to that site and then making you want that site, making you want that buy that pair of shoes is designed around it is an emotional buying process. That's the focus of customer user experience there. The whole experience is designed to make your right brain buy the shoe, right? When it comes to the B2B, it is a logical buying process. What do I mean by that? The buyer, the B2, almost all the B2B transactions happens after after the agreement, the relationship is established. That means you and your buyer has a sales agreement in place. They know you how you work. They know the parameters of your business, how they want to buy from you, or who should they contact, all of that. Then the buying experience, the checkout, is a reinforcement of the relationship. The relationship is established prior to the transactions. So that's a core difference between B2B and B2C. And this permeates into the concept of personalization. Personalization is such an important, is becoming such an important factor in a successful e-commerce rollout, whether it is B2B or B2C. The reason is that convenience. If you do a little research, you can see that number one secret of Amazon success: convenience over quality and people. I think Jeff Bezos said this. That is how they operate: convenience over quality and price, right? And in B2C, that personalization is focused on the demographics, age, location of the customer, knowing the customer at that level. In B2B, that personalization happens in 3 levels, right? The first level of the personalization happens that on that sales agreement that you and your buyers would have. What that means is, the experience, the catalog, the product availability is customized to the customer, the business customer, right? The pricing they see, the shipping terms, the payment terms, and the multi-level account approval process, all that is customized to that sales agreement you and your customer has. That's the first level. The second level is that the importance of customer portal. We have a client that we are working with. They supply electronic goods to companies such as UPS, FedEx, etc., and some of the companies, well-known companies. And when they log in, when UPS log in, my client site should look like a UPS site, right? The personalization happens at that level. Then there are workflows and processes that's configured to conform to the UPS workflows and processes. And then the third level, that demographic, the individualization level, doesn't have that much importance yet, but it is getting more and more important. And that is at that individual buyer level. If you can get to that level, you are achieving, you are performing at a very optimized organizational level. So then let's look at some numbers. So I'm going to jump around a number of topics, and if anything is catching your attention and have a question on it, you go on to do a deep dive, let us know. And with the numbers, I always say take it with a grain of salt, because where did you get the data, and when did you get the data? Based on that, numbers change, but the relative factor is still important. So I'm going to show you some global numbers, move into US numbers, then I'm going to come to India numbers. So B2C, the important factor here, two numbers here. The B2B globally is 4 times bigger than B2C. That's number one factor. And the second factor is that the B2B, 50% of the B2B is already electronic, EDI, e-commerce, and e-procurement. And the important factor there is EDI is an older technology that is getting less and less popular, giving way to newer technologies. And about 50% of this still phone, fax, face-to-face. This is pre-COVID, right? And I was attending a trade show about last November, and I walked around the booth, and it's a B2B trade show, and I would say most of them said, our sales doesn't come through website, our sales comes through trade shows, face-to-face. It's very true. And now there is no trade shows. There is no wine and dining, right? It's all digital. And so 50% of them used to be still offline mode, and the 27 next 7 years in globally 7.5 compound annual growth rate, right? Reaching into 7.3 trillion becomes 17.6 trillion. That is global. If we take the numbers in USA, you can see that's a 10x, right? B2C and B2B is a 10x, and the CAGR is 10%, reaching up to 10 trillion. Then if you look at India, right, B2C is 27 and a 3x, right? But here, look at the CAGR. Look at the growth rate of India. It is beating the global growth rate, right? So there's a tremendous opportunity to capture, to be online. Now, so that if that is not enough reason for us to act and get online, and here are a bunch of other reasons, right? And let's look at these reasons from 3 different angles: competition, buyers, and digital transformation. So competition. If you remember that 7.3 trillion businesses that is conducting transactions offline, and out of that, 61 that represents 61% of the manufacturers who does have a weak e-commerce site or no e-commerce site at all, or 38% of distributors, wholesalers on the same boat, right? That's what 7.3 trillion comes from. And there has been two studies have been done, one by Digital Commerce 360 and one by Big Commerce, one of e-commerce platform, their readiness to invest and get online in the next 24 months. This comes pre-COVID. And you can see that average is about 80% of the B2B buyers of that 61% of the manufacturers and 38% of the distributors were going to invest in e-commerce and get online in the next 24 months. Now, this study came April 20. This is by 451 Research. So I got this study yesterday through one of my LinkedIn connections. They said right now, that's 80% became 90%. I would say this is going to grow fast. So what that means to you is that if you are not thinking about being online, guess what? Your competition is. No doubt about it. Now that you can say it's kind of a internal push to be online. Let's look at from a pull standpoint. What does your buyer think, and what is your thinking of your buyers? This is from Marketing Charts. It's another reputable source, and according to their survey, 83% of your buyers are willing to pay higher prices if you have excellent e-commerce and customer portal capabilities. Do you know why? Convenience over price and quality. And look at the last number. 77% of them will run south if you don't have that kind of features. So think about that, right? It is a critical factor for you to have, if you're B2B, for you to have e-commerce, period, and customer portal capabilities. I keep repeating this customer portal capabilities. What that means for some of us who may be new to that term, what that means is you can when you log in, you are a buyer from your supplier, from manufacturer. When you log into that manufacturer's e-commerce site, the whole experience is customized to you. Even their site may look like your site, right? And it's going to reflect your sales agreement and everything else. So that is the customer portal capability means. Now, then this is another factor from the buyer side. I call it M2 effect. And this is from Harvard Business Review. 73% of the B2B buyers are millennials. And 70% of they are doing searches 70% of the time on mobile. So what does this mean? This means that, let us say I buy from you, I hired a new buying officer. He's 28 years old, right? And let's say I don't know you, right? I hired a new buying officer. I have a new requirement to buy certain widget X. And I asked Suzuki, who I hired, to find the best widget manufacturer. And Suzuki does her search, and find your site. And for your bad luck, the site sucks. It is not mobile responsive. It is not customer friendly. It doesn't give Suzuki that Amazon-like convenience. And you just happen to be the best widget manufacturer with the best price. Guess what? That 28-year-old is not going to buy from you. In less than 2 seconds, she's going to leave your site. No matter how good of a manufacturer product yours is and how good of a price you offer. They don't have the time. I don't know whether this is true or not. I was reading recently that nowadays our attention span is lower than that of a goldfish. Right? Very important. I have a poll here. Let me see if I can fire off the poll. So I'm going to ask you a question. If you can kindly answer this. You are the decision maker of your company, right? And you have 4 goals this year, four initiatives, objectives that you're trying to improve or trying to attack. So cost reduction, productivity, customer focus, speed. What would be your top of the mind? Just give it 30 seconds. All right, 18 of 26 people voted, and the results says, and polling, share the results. I hope you can see the results. The result says customer focus is the top priority. So McKinsey did this study among 853 decision makers, and across 9 industries. This study was done June 20. The result? Speed. The more than 80% of more than 75% of the CEOs picked speed as their top of the mind. The reason is this: uncertainty is the new normal, right? You don't know what is ahead of you, and market and customers' mind and their process, they are changing so fast. And reacting to that, reacting to that changes fast. If you don't do it, you are dead in the water. So speed is the most important factor. And e-commerce, I'm going to geek a little bit here. E-commerce is a low coding platform. What that means is, nowadays the way e-commerce sites are built is most of the time it uses a platform, then it uses off-the-shelf components to, it's like a piece of the puzzles, right? Put together the solution. It's a low-code solution. So case in point, we are working with the world's largest retail chain, 3,500 retail stores, 15 or 34 warehouses, 15 locations all across the country, etc. And when they came to us, they told us the story. They are trying to build this solution. They went to one of the world's best software consulting company. They said it's going to take 9 months, right? Came to us. We did that 9 months project using an e-commerce platform in about 45 days. Think about that. Nobody today, no company, no organization today has 9 months to build a solution and go to market with it. By the 9 months, your customers, your market will change, will already change. So speed is the game. Digital transformation, right? One of the very interesting subject is the old wine in a new bottle. If you look at LinkedIn, almost every CIO, CTO, CDO will have the digital transformation in their LinkedIn profile. So, and I attended a number of webinars. I read about digital transformation. Whenever I read this about digital transformation, this is the feeling I get, right? Blind describing the elephant and focusing on technology. Very, very emphasis on technology. So one day I decided, you know what, I got to have a better understanding. I have to define this better. I could be wrong. This was my simple attempt. So what I did is I kind of used an analogy of a system, right? Of a machine. You have input, you have processes, you have output. So what if the digital transformation is a system? So the input is data, people and processes goes into the system, go to the digital transformation, and your processes is geared towards create or enhance culture, partner relationship, customer experience, employee empowerment, and business models or processes. This is a process that you are going to go through using technology. So technology is plays an important role, but technology is not the objective here. And then there are two types of output, right? Intangible and tangible output. Intangibles are efficiencies, ease of use, data-driven insights for you to make the right decisions. It's not a little bit of gray area there. I see that. And the real tangible output are profits, market share, customer delight, and revenues. And we can talk about digital transformation all day long, but if you don't achieve these four areas, it has no meaning at all, right? Now, what is the relevance of digital transformation to digital commerce? E-commerce plays an integral part in digital transformation. So you have to think e-commerce not as something you can sell online, right? It's a connected hub that can touch upon many aspects of business. I'll go into the details in a bit. And so if you think about digital transformation, some of the digital transformation attributes are the periphery of this diagram, and e-commerce can provide all these features and functions to enable agility, connectedness, sales funnel, design thinking, all of that, right? These are some of the features of e-commerce that will facilitate producing these results. So it plays such an important role in digital transformation. Now, the output, this from that other study, came out April 2020, 80% of improvement in KPIs along with revenue growth. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty profound. Why you got to get on the bandwagon, right, to realize this. So these times, right, what's happening in the marketplace. So the game that we play today is disintermediation. Remove the middleman. Before, the supply chain looked like manufacturer to the distributor to the retailer to the consumer, right? Now, how do you remove that middleman? Using techniques like D2C, or it's also called, sparingly it's called M2C, manufacturer to consumer, and or C2M, consumer to manufacturer. That's D2C is kind of getting a lot of attention in the marketplace. C2M is implemented sparingly, but it's an interesting concept. C2M, an example of C2M would be, let's look at the example of D2C. Example of a D2C is Frito-Lay, right? The chips manufacturer, the snack chips, potato chips manufacturer. I think they're a subsidiary of Coca-Cola, I think. They, about 4 months back, they launched a feature where you could buy potato chips directly from Frito-Lay site. You had to spend about $15, but you can buy directly from them, right? Removing your grocery chain altogether from that supply chain. And consumer to manufacturer, I think this was Frigidaire. You could go and buy a Frigidaire fridge directly from Frigidaire. There are some parameters around it, but you could buy, right? Where that consumer to manufacturer comes in is you have to promote the intent of buying, and you have to get a couple more buyers, and you and your friends can buy together, right? So it's a demand generated from consumer, then manufacturer makes it based on just-in-time manufacturing, make it on just in time, and then they deliver. That's consumer to manufacturer. This Bopus, Mopus, Corpus, it's all meaning buy online, purchase at store, manufacture online, and customize online. These are derivative of D2C, right? Different way of, and Bopus is getting a lot of, I think it's $19 billion in US, 90, has generated through Bopus 2020, something like that. I read it in that report. So having said that, how are we doing in time? Okay. Most common B2B buyer challenges. This is from a buyer standpoint. You are the manufacturer, you are the business selling to other manufacturers. What does your buyers see as the challenges? So I'm not going to go through all of it, but if you have questions on some of the ones that I cover, let's talk about it. So the number 2, right? Inconsistent pricing and catalogs per sales contract. So that goes after that. When you log in, you have 2 customers. Customer A logs in, they should be seeing their prices, and customer B logs in, they should be seeing their prices and the inventory, right? And that doesn't happen often. And inconsistent pricing across digital sales channels, right? Nowadays, you cannot, your site is not the only place that you sell, right? It's omni-channel. It's you may sell on Amazon, Flipkart, eBay, depending upon which country you're operating from, India Mart. So wherever you sell, the pricing has to be consistent. And that's a challenge. So your customer doesn't want to see one price on Amazon and the other price on this one, right? And self-service, they don't want to talk to you, right? And recently I was talking to another company in America. and they asked me a question: what is the when you roll out, this is B2B software sales. I think one of their license sells for $250,000, and they asked me this question: we are going to go online, self-service online. Which of my department is going to be affected most by us going online? Right? They never sold online, and can you take a guess which one will get affected the most? Sales department. Right? It's a cultural shift, it's a process shift, and the role of a sales guy in the digital era changes from a pure sales guy to a SME, subject matter expert. Because I'll show you some why is that in the next slides. Because your customer already knows about you, right? They are coming to the sales guy. If they ever try to reach out to a sales guy, they are looking for specific information. They're looking to fill in the blanks they have, right? Now let's look at platforms, right? The platform, there are about 400 platforms out there, right? And we can put in 5 different type of buckets. There's some relationship between some of this. Custom built, nobody's doing it. Relatively speaking, nobody's doing custom built. Then you are self-hosted, and that means you're downloading the platform and you're hosting it yourself, you're configuring it, you're maintaining, managing under your it's your responsibility. Then you have your hosted SaaS platform. This is your Shopify, BigCommerce evolutions of the world in the SMB market, and the self-hosted Magento, WooCommerce, PrestaShop of the world. And then you have the new guys around the block, the decoupled and headless. Decoupled, what that means is, again, I'm going to geek warning. I'm going to geek a little bit. And decoupled means your front and your presentation layer is completely detached from your backend processes. It's all based on APIs and things like that. I'll tell you why we do that. Then headless, in decoupled, it comes with front ends. You can configure it even though it's detached. It comes with some sort of a starting point. Headless, they don't give programmers a front end at all. It's all APIs they give. Your programming team is going to develop the front end. The reason why the whole industry is moving towards it is getting slowly adapted is that omni-channel. Nowadays, as you know, your buyers are buying from your mobile, so it has to be mobile responsive, and desktop and laptop. Tomorrow, they are going to be, already they are buying from your Amazon Echo and Google Home, and tomorrow it's going to be AR, VR, your fridge, IoT devices, right? You'll be buying from them, right? They will be buying on behalf of you. So this is all going to happen. So how do you create a seamless experience, seamless omnichannel experience, so that you can cater to the customer wherever, whenever they are? So you have to have that front end fluid, conforming to any shape or form. And so that's the reason why decoupled and headless is coming. So the question we have is, how do you pick the right platform? So we identified about 21 e-commerce variables. Don't get scared. It all made logical sense. And if you think about B2B, some of the ones highlighted in bold is the one that we see that B2B buyers use. Flexibility is very, very important in B2B. Sometimes B2B stores would have, you have a B2B store, B2B customers, then on the top you may sell to B2C also, right? So how do you, and then you don't want to run two businesses, you want to run one business in the back end. From a front-end standpoint, you are catering to both customers, and the initial cost and ongoing cost, ease of integration. B2B it is all about integration, the connected world, right? It has to connect to the ERP system, your inventory management, order management, and your accounting, your CRM. It is a connected world. How do you make that e-commerce system? E-commerce system has the ability to play a vital central role in the entire ecosystem. How do you make that happen? So these are some of the parameters you think about when you find the checkboxes. Think about it, and when you find what the right platform for you. B2B buyer behavior. Without some understanding of how your buyers behave, you cannot build a good system. right? And there are many numbers you could find in this B2X partner sites. Some of the ones that kind of stood out, I put it here. Take a 50th second and see what if you can summarize what this means, right? Use buying is done. So 57% of the time, buying is done prior contacting sales. They made their decision to buy before they contact you, right? 12 Google searches, socially influenced. This means, and 73% use Google to find info, right? 89 use internet. Content is king in B2B, right? And attributes of that content, it should provide answers, right? They are also looking for, there's a couple sites. Uber suggest, there's another one called Answer the Public. They will always give you, you can find out what are the most frequently asked questions about your product and services. Then you create content to answer those questions your target demographics answering, and so answers. And the content has to invoke trust, project your expertise, project your thought leadership, and establish familiarity, right? If your content can do this, then Google will see that, hey, you're writing for the audience, it will bubble up. So content is king. And now I want to talk about success. How do you launch a successful e-commerce, B2B e-commerce site? But before that, let's look at what are some of the reasons why e-commerce sites would fail, right? If you Google, you can see that 80 to 97% of e-commerce projects fail. You can just Google it, e-commerce project failure rate. Google say up to 97. Now, you may argue that, well, that's because there are a lot of startups happening in the e-commerce industry, and they are like mushrooms in the fresh rain. They come and die fast. You could argue that, but if you dig a little more deeper into the Google search, you can see that B2B fails 95% e-commerce project. So there is B2B, most of the B2B are not startup. I'm speaking about a market here. They are an established company. They are trying to get online. So if the B2B fails 95%, there is something else other than the startups, right? So some of my favorite ones are in the bold. Planning, lack of planning. E-commerce is not just another website. It is for the more B2B you are, the bigger brand you are, the more B2B you are, that sentence become true and true and true, right? And therefore, it is a complex user-centered software engineering problem where solutions from multiple parties going to come together, fit like a puzzle, perfect puzzle, and that fit to make sure that like a lot of the smaller players are going to play in your solution correctly. That's a complex software engineering problem. So if you don't plan well, if you treat it as just a website, failure guaranteed 99%, 97%. So you have to plan well, right? And true role of e-commerce, I will tell you what that is. I touched upon it, digital transformation and things like that, but I'll touch upon it again because it's important. Platform focus, right? Many times companies comes to and say, hey, I want to build on Shopify. I would say, why? My friend did it. Okay. Give me another reason. It's easy to use. Okay, sure. Let's talk about can we talk about your business first? Then we can figure out. Platform comes and goes, right? From custom built to hosted to SaaS to headless to decoupled. This is going to go. This is going to go round and round. But your business has to evolve through this. So let's focus on your business first and figure out what the right platform is. So that's important. And who are you going to work with? They must have a build process because, and again, like the times that we're living in, development launch is consist of uncertainties. What is their process to manage that? How do they mitigate the risk of time, scope, and resources, etc.? That's very important. Again, if you want me to elaborate on any of this, let me know. So here come my favorite subject. I think e- we cannot, saying e-commerce is useless, because which commerce out there exist out there without e in it, right? All commerce is going to become e-commerce. So saying e-commerce is redundant, but and that is non-humane. Business is about humans, right? Ultimate goal of the business is to benefit humans. We'll touch upon that. So this is the Wikipedia definition. E-commerce refers to any form of business transaction conducted online. There is no human in it. And success, what's a successful business? The whole purpose of business is to benefit the humans. And what the humans in a business, there are 5 types of people in any business: your prospects, your employees, your customers, your investors, and partners. Take any business, you'll find these 5 types of people. And winning the hearts and minds of those 5 types of people is the sustainable business, is the winning business, right? I had a prospect pre-COVID. He didn't become client because of COVID and everything, and he told me this: in 30 months, he changed his platform 2 times already. The reason? His employees hated past 2 times. He's thinking about changing the 3rd time, right? So you have to include them also into the mix. And if you dissect that platform, your business, this is your business, right? You have 5 types of people. Each one would have their own objective. Prospects want better solutions. Employees want productivity, happiness, and partners want frictionless relationship. Investors want top line growth. Customers want better experiences, right? Then it's connected with all your systems. This is your business, right? And e-commerce can meet all these objectives by the nature of what that is. So what is e-commerce, right? The mindset we should have is e-commerce. Remove the e. It is there. Believe it is there, and then our mindset to be inclusive commerce, right? And it is e-commerce, the digital experience hub that can meet human objectives in your business. It can produce revenue if using automation, and it can increase efficiency. Therefore, it can attain profits. It can deliver customer experience wherever, whenever your customer is, and it can connect with all your systems. This is beyond selling. This is beyond selling, right? If we can understand it, and take when you decide to launch your e-commerce platform, build that process around this concept, you would have a long-lasting effect. Very successful implementation and a long-lasting benefits. And you understand the beginning of, so therefore e-commerce must be e-commerce success. I'm going to summarize in a one minute or so. So there's a couple of important, how do you make sure the success? Strategy and brand focus. Your brand is very important, and it has to connect with the human level. Your brand messaging, brand position, connect with the humans. Even if you are B2B, at the end of the day, the person who is buying, it's not a machine buying. Of course, you can argue that EDI, but that 7.3 trillion people, they are people who's going to buy from you. They have to connect with you in B2B. Planning, measure, cut once, or go agile. If you have the budget, go agile. There are certain parameters you can use to figure out which way you will go. Business first, platform second, right? We talked about inclusive e-commerce, connectedness. External, there are systems internally and there are systems externally, and your e-commerce can connect with all these systems and implement RPAs and robotic process automations, etc., to reduce the cost of operation. Convenient customer experience, convenient UX, right? Standardize for simplicity. Then customize for flexibility. We are talking about your UI, right? And focus on familiarity. So when your designer designs a e-commerce platform, don't go crazy. Whatever the standard out there, think about the Amazon, right? If the customers or Flipkarts of the world, so they are bought in Flipkart. model them, right? Don't get crazy because if you do something non-standard, that can get confused. It can create confusion, friction in that buying process. People will not buy, right? And omni-channel, not only your websites, not only your website. There are other areas also you should be selling. And remember, your business is a race, right? It's like a car race. It is like a Dakar rally, one of the most toughest challenges in a car race. It is not like a Formula One race. Uncertainty is the normal, and you have to have the right driver, marketing team. You have to have the right engine, right? Then you have to have the right engineering, right? You have to have the right e-commerce engineering development team, and you cannot mix both the marketing and the engineering put together. You wouldn't do that in a race, right? You won't trust your developers, your marketers to perform the engineering function and vice versa. So remember that. Then they have to have a development process, right? That reduce the risk of time, cost, and scope. That's very important because things will go off the chart, off the track. They have having a sound, solid process is the one that's going to help you that's going to save the day. And once it is launched, you have to invest in marketing. That's your drivers, right? You had to look at your KPIs. And when it comes to continuous improvement, conversion rate optimization, and think about in e-commerce. E-commerce is a transactional site application, and all the other websites out there, other than e-commerce, is a non-transactional. When it comes to a transactional site such as e-commerce, you have to have a multi-KPI based approach, right? You cannot just look at number of orders per visit. There's average order value, there's customer lifetime value. There are 6 or 7 other important KPIs that you have to worry about, you have to think about. So if you can do that, your continuous improvement effort should be based on multiple KPIs. Now, last but not least, you have heard this 1,000 times. I'm going to emphasize this one more time. Speed of your website, speed and important performance of your website is very, very important. People, like I said, attention span of a human being is said to be less than that of a goldfish, right? So it has to render fast. Having said that, guess what? Change is the normal, right? Your success, you're going from point A to point Z, and you're going to have small incremental changes and big fundamental changes throughout this journey. And key to success: adapt, embrace, and transform your business. Adapt, embrace the inevitable change, and transform your business. That's the key to success. Understand it and act upon it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. That was a very high graphic and very power-packed presentation, wherein you had put all your experiences of the years into it to tell us Indians sitting there in Philadelphia on various aspects of e-commerce, as well as focusing on the B2B aspect. Now, my memory goes back to close to about 30 years when Andy Grove, who was at the time the CEO of Intel Corporation, before writing the book called Only the Paranoid Survive, he just made a statement that all companies will be internet companies, otherwise they will not be companies. That was 30 years back. What he meant was that actually eventually you'll all go online, and when you go online, it happened in phases. The online was initially for the information, then it went for the interaction, and finally it went to the transaction. And the transaction, it started at the EDI stage, and then we are talking about headless and decoupled e-commerce, etc., etc., etc. That's the level of growth that it has come. So you have actually traversed us through very well, of course, at the same time jargonish, at the same time technology centric, and at the same time commonsensical presentation. Thank you very much. It is a wonderful presentation and it is graphic rich. In fact, I was seeing somebody in the chat asking whether this presentation can be shared, etc. So that is that must be the paint that you have put up in this. I'll ask you some questions, and later I will also take some questions from the audience to talk to you. Now, see, the one element uh, which have, of course, you mentioned you focused on the B2B because, as you said, B2B is where relationship starts much before your transactions start, whereas in B2C your relationships start after the purchases are done. Now, but most of us as consumer, okay. So there may be two sides. I may be a technologist, I may be a marketeer, but I could also be a consumer. So I'm mostly looking at things from a consumer perspective. So my mind always, whenever I hear about e-commerce, go to B2C. It's not the B2B, the B2C. Like I go to the Flipkart and I go to the Amazon and I just get that user experience and buy. So if that is to be taken, that is on one side, and another side, you say that the big numbers that you have said about $1 trillion, $1 billion, $1 trillion, etc., and also saying about the number of failure going beyond 90%. Most of the e-commerce uh, projects actually fail. All this is there. Now, I would first ask you about the B2C question, then I'll go to the B2B. Now, do you, of course, B2B being very high and large, and the cumulative aggregate growth, etc., is high. As one person had also asked this question, does the technology differ on B2C commerce and B2B commerce?
Yeah, if you technology, I'm going to translate technology into platform. Well, the question is, does the platform differs between B2B and B2C? Yeah, there are certain platforms that is more geared towards B2C,
Yeah.
right? So if you think about the platforms, there are platforms that gear towards more towards B2C, and you could do B2B on it, but it takes an extra effort, right? And then there are platforms more geared towards small to medium sized businesses versus enterprise, right? So if you think about, I can give you an example. If you think about WooCommerce,
Yep.
WooCommerce, if somebody picks, and I saw that somebody asking this a question, something related to this. If you think about WooCommerce, WooCommerce is a terrific platform for SMEs, small to medium sized businesses, right? And if the transaction volumes are not too high, WooCommerce is a wonderful platform, and that's why WooCommerce has one of the largest e-commerce platform is WooCommerce. So a lot of small to medium sized business use it, right? But if your transaction volume is very very high, and then you go something like Magento if you want the ultimate flexibility, right? And then the cost also come into the other cost also come into the factor. So yes, whether it's B2B and B2C, the picking the platform, it does play a role.
Let me ask you this question. Let's take about the instance of the biggest of the biggest e-commerce site, which is Amazon.
Uh-huh.
Is it a custom made site, or is it a
Yeah,
site built on a
they are.
platform?
If you want to go into that level, they are building custom, completely custom.
Let's say if I'm a Kirana store owner, I'm a Papa Mama shop located in a village or in a locality, and I would like to go into e-commerce. What platform will you recommend that I should go in for that?
Okay, so you could see we are certified in 10 e-commerce platforms, right?
Okay.
So I cannot publicly. You're putting me in a really tough position. I cannot publicly say which platform I prefer, but I can. I can say that when it's a real situation. But I would say if you are if you know how to if you don't mind managing
Yeah.
an e-commerce site from a backend standpoint, there's a little bit of pain involved, and then WooCommerce, is a terrific platform. And if you're, if you are, the scenario that described is a Kirana store in the corner, right? The corner store,
Yeah.
but let's say you don't want to worry about managing a store, right? Updating plugins and things like that, and then you go for a SaaS platform, Shopify, BigCommerce, Volutions of the world, right? So this way, once the site is built, you don't have to worry about you have to pay a monthly fee. They take care of the upkeep of the platform,
See, I had seen, whether it is B2B or B2C, the biggest element in all of this is the supply chain. You know? The supply chain, because the front end is okay. You can attract the customer, give him good user experience, or give him good user interface. All that is fine. But if your supply chain, that is your real robust backend, if it doesn't stand in place, or if it actually gets off, then your so will you attribute the failure of an e-commerce site to more to supply chain or to front end customer responses?
Both. If you the bigger you are and the more B2B you are, the importance of, it's not only supply, the whole integration, right? It is a connected world. Everybody in your organization needs data. Your partners need data. Even though we call it supply chain, it's a data exchange we are talking about, right? At the end of the day. And therefore, integration is paramount. And like I said, the more B2B you are and the bigger branch you are, the importance of integrated, connected work, the connectedness plays an important role in the success of the project, of the e-commerce business.
Yours is a e-commerce consulting and e-commerce development company, but I understand that most of the e-commerce are essentially platform centric, So, and you yourself said that you're agnostic to platform. You just recommend a platform depending upon the customer's requirement and customer's purse, etc. Now, let me ask you this question. Not much of coding is involved. It is actually the integratory aspect which is much more, isn't it? I mean, if I'm able to select. So, if that's the case, why should a customer, or why should an e-commerce developer, or why should a company which want to go into e-commerce look for consultants and developers? Can't they do it themselves?
Yeah, there are a lot of decision points. I can give you a simple scenario. So let's say you're building on WooCommerce, right? You decide to build on WooCommerce. You want to implement payment gateway,
Yep.
right? Or you want to implement a feature. Well, there are 5 plugins that does that. How do you know which one is right for you? That's number one. Number two, the features and functions are not important,
Yes.
right? And it is important, but the question is what features and functions you want, the strategy, right? What we do is not only development, we also get involved in figuring out what the pain points. So your business, if you think about your business, you have customers, you have your internal site operators, you have your partners and your employees. This is, and if you think, think about the dynamics of an e-commerce site. All of these four groups have objectives, pain points, and wish list, right? And there is data. There can be data that may or may not support their pain points, objectives, and wish list, right? And so once you have to understand it, then you have to strategize. You decide on features and functions, right? Then you have to find out the solutions, what the right solution for the features and functions that you want to build. Does this plugin does 80% of the job, and is it a popular plugin? So those kind of the decision has to be made. That could be way beyond the e-commerce site, the owner of the business, right? The decision-making team of the business.
But your point is that majority of the e-commerce endeavors fail, and majority of the e-commerce endeavors could have been done through consultants and developers. So that means majority of the developers and consultants also fail, isn't it? If A is equal to B is equal to C, therefore A is equal to C.
Very true, very true. This is one of my favorite subjects, right? So most of some of us may not like what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway,
Yeah.
right? Remember I told you business is a race, right? And you have the right marketing team, great driving team, right driving team. You have the right car, right engine. You are not going to take your Honda to a Formula One. You are not going to take your Ferrari to a Dakar car rally, right? Then you have to have the certified engineer, the certified pit crew, right? And what happens? Let's say company X manufacturer X wants to build an e-commerce site. 99% of the time that goes to their marketing team, right? And then from the marketing team, immediately that CMO, chief marketing officer, or director of marketing, Her thinking is, who will do this? It goes to a marketing team, an external marketing team to build the e-commerce site. Now, what qualifies the marketing team to know it's a marketing team. They are good in marketing, but that doesn't make them good in building, strategizing, building, and dealing with the complexities of that complex software engineering project that you're going to do, e-commerce project. And this is one of the untold stories. I am biased. I'm an e-commerce developer in heart. I'm biased, but I would strongly argue that this is one of the core factors of failure in the marketplace.
All right. So let me take some questions from the attendees. Mr. Sudhakaran Nair, one question I have already asked you. The second question from Mr. Sudhakaran Nair is, so many platforms. Please let us know some of the top 5 reliable ones. Again, you may have to be a little specific. Yeah, in spite of the fact that you have to be agnostic.
Yeah. So if you are, again, the famous consultant answer, it depends what you want to build, who you are, right? But I will give you the answer anyway. So if you want to have that control, right? If you want to have the ultimate flexibility, and you want to own the whole thing, and then WooCommerce Magento. You look at the open source hosted platforms like or self-hosted platform like WooCommerce, Magento, PrestaShop, etc. And there are other factors also. You can think about other factors also, but you don't want to think about, once it is built, you don't want to think about maintenance and upkeep of the platform. It has to run all the time, right? Then you are in the SaaS platform, Shopify, BigCommerce, Volutions of the world. I'm strictly talking about in the SMB market. Okay, that's where we focus. Our expertise is today, up to $100 million revenue range, and so that is that group is the right platform for you now. But moving ahead, if you are a advanced stage company that you're thinking about, your customers comes from Amazon, Alexa, Google Home, and then you're thinking about AR, VR, coming from, you're the bleeding edge of technology, then you should be looking at headless and decoupled headless platforms and decoupled platforms.
Now tell me, these headless and decoupled platforms, etc., that you are referred to, how reliable and how much of maturity have they gained as of now?
There are companies. I won't name them. There are many established companies claiming to be headless, but they are not ready yet, right? You can make them headless, but there's a lot of investment needed to make an headless platform.
It is. I would rather say it would be a risky proposition to look at a headless e-commerce proposition for me, rather than I would stay with the SaaS model, isn't it? That should be a better way for me.
Yeah, that's a better way. Yes, because you are using microservices anyway. It's API based world. Why do you have to? So so there are newer entrants, newer players coming into the market that's built from the ground up as headless also. I say you're frozen.
I will just rephrase or paraphrase this question. The question is, you hear me? You hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yes.
Are you able to hear me? Hello.
Yes, I can.
It says, which is a better option? Which is a better option? Developing your own e-commerce site or going by some of those standard sites, that platforms available?
Do not. Please do not.
For an SMB sort of a proposition.
Yeah, please do not develop your own platform, because things will change, right? And using a plug and play platform, it is easier to change. The market is in a constant change, and what your customers wants and needs is constantly evolving and changing faster than ever. So you should be able to change certain parts easily, plug in the new one, and the plug and play environment makes that possible. So please do not make the mistake of investing into an e-commerce platform. Even if you are a $1 unless you are the Amazons of the world. And what they're doing, can you hear me now, sir? Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, it's audible.
Okay, and now sorry, it's frozen. It looks like. So the reason that Amazons and Flipkarts of the world uses a custom platform is that they want the sheer performance, right? They are running a server farm, and so in order to get that level of performance, you got to control every aspect. You had to own the complete 100% of the code, and you had to own every bits and pieces of that e-commerce site needs to be optimized. That's why they build it. But for most of the SMBs, no. Even Nikes of the world does use a off-the-shelf platform. That's how you're muted.
Very good, Gigi. Well advised. Okay, there is a Yatin Shah question which I have already asked you about the Kirana Cornerstone guy. The last is here, Anshu Srivastav wanting to know. Fantastic session, Gigi. Congratulations. Okay. Any nuances to the approach which would be different based on the company's location and target market? For example, an Indian product company selling into US market vis-a-vis an Indian product company selling into Indian market, or a US product company selling into US selling into India. I mean, so he's asking what are the nuances of Indian company selling in India, Indian company selling in the US company selling in the US, and US company selling into India,
Yeah.
etc. Is there any specific advice or nuances that you would like to point out? Actually?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the cultural differences from a UX standpoint, there are multiple areas of e-commerce. So from a UX standpoint, the cultural difference of the customers makes different, right? So for example, red for an American, red is danger, right? I'm talking about the UX, right? As soon as you say red, the heart goes the pumping a little faster, right? For Indians and for Asian countries, red is good, right? Having that submit button in or checkout button in red may not be a good decision for an American client, may not be. So that's a UX UI. And the most importantly, the supply chain, right? How do you send the items cross border? By the way, if you are thinking about selling American products to India, and there is a trade.gov which we are a part of, right? We are one of the 5 technology service providers for trade.gov, e-commerce technology service provider, and they help you to do cross-border transactions, to go through all these red tapes and administrative stuff.
Okay. All right, Shilpi Sharma wants to know that any of this platform giving visibility into sourcing practice using blockchain, that is adoption of blockchain technology in the e-commerce platforms?
um, there are plugins available, but it is getting there, right? Especially in e-commerce and blockchain, it is in the very early stages, and like we have done about 1,000 plus sites in the last 4 years. We have worked with, and none of them, I think maybe one of the European client asked me that, some sort of a plugin or something with blockchain. Um,
So it's the early
yeah,
stages. It
it's
may
very early
happen, but it
stage.
is. So
Yeah.
similarly, she also wants to know, Shilpi wants to know whether headless, decoupled, etc. Any company can give examples of having companies.
That's
The question is in the Q&A tab.
yeah. I'm
If you can
looking for this. I'm looking for the
This is from
question.
Shilpi Sharma.
Shippy Sharma, where are this?
Yeah, yeah. Gigi, are you able to hear me?
Repeat that. I'm looking at CP Sharma. Can
Can you
you
hear me
repeat the
now?
question, please? Can you
Yeah, the
repeat the
question
question?
that is asked is like the same person who asked the blockchain question wants to know headless and decoupled e-commerce sites. Can you give some examples?
Um, there is some examples. I can send you some. I can send you some examples, and there are coming. They are coming. It is again. They are also into. Industry thought that there will be much faster adoption to headless, but it is a slower adoption.
Right. So Yatin
I'll
Shah,
give some
in
examples.
fact, yeah, Yatin Shah sent me a message telling that I didn't ask his question correctly. So I'm going to read out his question to you so that you could answer. A Kirana, that is a retail store, deals 50 to 100 vendors for supply. Please provide examples of B2B marketplace where retailer can place orders of all items with same day delivery with visibility of delivery status. Find them alternate supplier and product. Have multiple options for payments. Provide analysis to be more efficient and profitable. So you are the mother of acting together for the e-commerce. And that too for the Kirana store. Yatin Shah,
And that's a,
salutations.
you are trying to do too much in that Kirana store. My
Yeah,
friend, you're trying to do too much in that Kirana store.
yeah, that's right. Yes.
So that's a big loaded, that's a
It's
big
really
question. You
loaded.
want me to build the entire, what you're asking me to build the entire architect of the entire solution. We can do it, but I don't think we have time to answer all of that right now. I'll be
Gigi,
glad to
somebody
answer.
asked.
Right? I put my email address in there, and
Yeah,
I'll be glad
okay.
to
So
answer. We
anyone, yeah,
can.
in the presentation, Gigi's email address is there. You could directly be interfacing with him. It is time. It is time. It's about an hour and 10 minutes that we have been on. Gigi has actually we taken about 45 minutes to explain to us various nuances of e-commerce, particularly the B2B, and coming to the inclusivity. You know, everybody is on inclusivity now. You know, everybody like your maybe your prospective President Biden also had done an inclusivity by bringing in Kamala Harris. So the inclusivity days run very often. Very good. Gigi, thanks a lot. Thank you very much for your kindness. It is early morning day for you, and you had come on stage and gave us your presentation, and that too lots of facts and a lot of input filled presentation, and also for the patients to answer our questions. We should be meeting you again. Maybe we will be inviting you again more on this as time go by. At this point in time, it is Ainora. Thank you very much. All the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nair sir, and thank you everyone for the great questions. Thank you, Nirmal, for making this happen. I truly appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you,
Right.
participants.
Yes.
Thank you for attending the call. We'll look forward to meeting you again next week. Thank you all.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you. Bye
Gigi.
now.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Nirmal.
Nair sir.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very
Bye.
much. Bye now.